أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على محمد وعلى آله وسلم. Inshallah, today we will start second chapter, which is named Al-Baqarah. This is the largest chapter of Holy Quran. It has 286 verses, which are divided into 40 ruku. It is spread over part 1, part 2, and about 1/3 of part 3. Its revelation order is 87th, and this is called a Madani Surah, a chapter which was revealed in Medina. With regards to the title of Al-Baqarah, the word Al-Baqarah means cow. Now that indicates that there would be some mention of cow in this chapter. So before we start this, let's recall the promise which we made in chapter 1 and requested Almighty Allah for guidance. The reply starts from this chapter. Let's begin by praying from Almighty Allah that through the blessings of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he gives us correct understanding of the Holy Quran. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alif Lam Mim. Alif Lam Mim. Such type of words are called haruf-e-muqatta'at, and for them each letter is spelled separately. There are 14 such words which can be found in the Holy Quran. Word Alif Lam Mim appears 6 times in the Holy Quran, that is, in the beginning of chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 29, 30, 31, and 32. Now let's see various approaches about these words by the commentators and by the researchers. The first one, Allah and His Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam knows the meanings better. Number 2, since the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, has not disclosed their meanings publicly, therefore any attempt in this regard is forestepping. Number 3, a group of researchers maintains that these are abbreviated words where each letter represents some attribute of Allah. Let's proceed to verse 2. Zalikal kitabu la rayba fi hudal lil muttaqeen. This is a book in which there is no uncertainty, a guidance for muttaqeen. Zalika, this is. Al-Kitab, the second word, the book. Raib, uncertainty. Hudan, guidance. Lil Muttaqeen, for extremely conscious, meticulous, careful, and those people who are exercising restraint. Now, in response to our request for guidance in chapter 1, this is the book which does not have any uncertainty or anything which causes doubt. So for each reciter to understand it correctly, it's mandatory to approach this book without bearing any doubt in mind. The last part of this verse states that this book is guidance for Muttaqeen. And Muttaqeen are the people of Taqwa, and they are called Muttaqi. They are the people who exercise extreme care about the commands of Allah, act upon them willingly, and refrain from anything which can cause displeasure. The root of word Muttaqeen is Waki, and there are about 21 words formed by this root in the Holy Quran and can be found in 237 verses. Now, pondering upon these verses transpires two major aspects: to refrain from all that has been forbidden, and number two, to act upon the commands of Allah willingly and wholeheartedly. Now, this precondition that this book guides those who are muttaqeen demands from us to ponder on the aspect of taqwa and as to why so much emphasis has been laid down on this. The Holy Quran mentions, number one, that this is something for which the people who were given books and we are being advised. Now, this fact is mentioned in chapter 4, verse 31. And we have instructed those who were given books before you and yourself to be meticulous about Allah. Number two, it's important to gain taqwa as it helps in preparing for the next stage of life. And that is mentioned in chapter 59, verse 18. O you who have believed, exercise care about Allah and let every spirit look as to what it has put forth for tomorrow. Allah Almighty appreciates taqwa, and this has been declared as a standard for according ranks, as mentioned in chapter 15, verse 13. O mankind, indeed, we have created you from a male and female, that you may know one and another. Indeed, the most noble of you in the sight of Allah is the most conscious of you. Taqwa is cause of forgiveness and earning favor of Allah. As mentioned in chapter 8, verse 29, O you who believe, if you keep your duty to Allah, He will give you distinction and will rid you of the evil and misdeeds and will forgive you. Allah is of infinite bounty. Taqwa is the best provision one can have. As mentioned in verse 97 of Chapter Al-Baqarah, which we are studying, so make provision for yourselves. Indeed, the best provision is to exercise care. Therefore, keep your duty unto Allah, O men of understanding. Taqwa is means of becoming free of needs, and this fact is mentioned in chapter 65, verse 2 and 3. And whoever is conscious of Allah, He will make for him a way out, and He will provide for him from where he does not expect. And whoever relies upon Allah, then He is sufficient for him. Taqwa is like a protection mechanism or a body armor that saves one from the attacks of his enemy. And this is mentioned in chapter 7, verse 26. And the April of restraint, that is the best. This is from the signs of Allah, that they may remember. In brief, a muttaqi, the one having taqwa, is one who takes extreme care in understanding, and while doing so, he keeps himself free of any doubt. He is so conscious about Allah that no form or configuration of this universe can deceive him. He knows Allah altogether separately. And finally, our Murshid Kareem, Hazrat Khaja Shamsuddin Azimi, has explained this verse in the following words. This book enlightens those who have keen interest within them about Allah. Alladhina yu'minuna bil-ghaibi wa yuqimuna as-salata wa mimma razaqnahum yunfiqun. Those who believe in the unseen and establish Salah, and they spend out of the provisions what we have given them. The second word, yu'minun, believers, are those people who believe. BilGhaib, which is the third word, by unseen, hidden, or secreted. Yuqimun, establish. As-salah, connection, link, a bond. Razaqnahum, provisions we have granted them. And last word, yunfiqun, they spend. Now verses 3 and 4 describe a few qualities of Muttaqeen and which are required to understand the Holy Quran correctly. Verse 3 mentions about Eeman BilGhaib, that is believing in or belief by unseen. Number 2, establishing Salah in order to get connected. And number 3, spending from whatever provisions or the resources have been given to us by Allah Almighty. So let's ponder upon them one by one, the 3 things which are mentioned in this verse. First thing, Eeman BilGhaib. Now, ghaib are those realities which are out of sight of ordinary people. They are regarding cognition of Allah. They are regarding cognition of Allah. The word Eeman means to be absolutely certain. And it is that reality which demands continuously seeking. And this seeking is not to get any reward, but to satisfy own self. To get introduced to the world of ghaib or the unseen, one needs to have complete faith about ghaib. It's called yaqeen. And the people of taqwa have the ability to observe what is secreted from the sight of ordinary people. And that is by looking within themselves. In the words of Hazrat Khaja Shamsuddin Azimi, Eeman BilGhaib means that one has internal vision. Because unless someone possesses this ability, he cannot subjugate the universe. Now coming out to the second aspect, which is mentioned in this verse, to establish Salah in order to get connected and strengthen a bond with Allah. To make this bond, one needs to do all those things which Allah is doing. and that is serving the creations without any discrimination and without seeking any rewards. Now coming out to the third aspect, spending out of the provisions that have been given to us by Allah. One may ask, what to spend? How much to spend? For whom shall we spend? Chapter 2, verse 215, that highlights for us, they ask you what they shall spend. Say that which you spend for good to your parents, your near kindred, orphans, and the needy and the wayfarers. And whatever good you do, indeed, Allah is aware of it. Chapter 2, verse 219 mentions, and they ask you what they are to spend. Say, which is spare. Thus, Allah entitles you of His revelations so that you may reflect. So spending in the way of Allah demands that one shall not expect any reward, any service, or any favor from those who have been helped. Now, this fact is mentioned in chapter 2, verse 262. Those who spend their wealth for the cause of Allah and afterward do not make reproach and pain to follow that which they have spent, their reward is with their lot, and there shall come no fear upon them, neither they shall grieve. وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِمَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْكَ وَمَا أُنزِلَ مِن قَبْلِكَ وَبِالْآخِرَةِ هُمْ يُوقِنُونَ. And those who believe what has been sent down to you and what has been sent before you, and they have conviction in the cycle of hereafter. The first underlined word, unzila, was sent down or was revealed. Kableka, before your time or before you. Bil akhirat, by the cycle of requital. Yuqinun, believe with certainty. Now this verse reveals us some more qualities of the people of taqwa. First, they believe in what has been sent down to you and what has been sent before. Number two, they have conviction about the cycle of hereafter. Now, first part of this verse have been described in more detail in verse 136 of this chapter. And that states, say, we believe in Allah and what is revealed to us and what has been revealed to Ibrahim and Ismail and Ishaq and Jacob and their tribes, and what has been given to Moses and Jesus, and what was given to prophets from their Lord. We make no discrimination between any of them and are Muslims to Him. Almighty Allah, who is our real creator and real owner, has not only brought us to existence, but also made arrangements for our guidance through His prophets and messengers. This divine system is free of flaws as compared to the human intellect, which has certain limits, and by emotional, cultural, and environmental conditions. Therefore, Believing and acting upon divine revelations economizes human efforts, time and trials, and errors. The second part of the verse is about their complete faith in the system of hereafter. The verse indicates that their belief that whatever we are getting, that is to be born, to live, die, have children, have business, everything is from Allah. And this system of belief results into a habit of remaining watchful about all aspects of life. A few more qualities of Muttaqeen are mentioned in chapter 3, verse 134 and verse 135. Who spend during ease and hardship, and who restrain anger, and who pardon the people, and Allah loves the doers of good. And those who, when they commit an immorality or wrong themselves, remember Allah and seek forgiveness for their sins. And who can forgive sins except Allah? And they do not persist in what they have done while they know. Now, this verse points out of having faith that whatever we are having is all from Allah. So these four qualities, which are mentioned in verse 3 and 4, may be considered as various areas which we need to develop to understand this book, which is Quran, in its true perspective, so that we get enlightened and we can make our lives purposeful and successful. أولئك على هدى من ربهم وأولئك هم المفلحون. They are on guidance from their nurture, and they are the ones who are prospering. Rabbihim, their provider of the resources, their Lord. Al-Muflihun, ones whose efforts have been fruitful. The word falah actually means a farmer who plows the land for seeding and gets an abundant crop in return. Verse 5 declares two things about people of taqwa. They are the people who are enlightened with guidance by their Lord, and number two, the ones whose efforts are fruitful. Now first, let's discuss guidance from the Lord. Hudam min Rabbihim. The people who approach this book with open mind, leave aside any preconceived ideas or emotions, will be able to grasp this book. And of course, guidance of Allah is the biggest blessing one can have in his life. And we shall be clear that Allah gives guidance to those who return to Him and seek guidance. And this fact is mentioned in chapter 4, verse 88. And whosoever keeps astray from Allah, so you will never find a way for him. And chapter 42, verse 13, and he guides towards himself to those people who turn to him. The second aspect, Ulaika humul muflihun. Those are the ones who are prospering. The efforts of such people would meet success. However, while striving, they have to be patient. They have to remain steadfast, and they are to help each other. This fact is mentioned in chapter 3, verse 200. O you who believe, be patient, keep enduring, strengthen each other, and observe your duty to Allah, so that your efforts bear fruits. Inna ladina kafaru sawa'un alayhim a anzartahum am lam tundirhum la yu'minun. Indeed, those who disbelieve, it is same to them whether you apprise them or you do not apprise them. They would not believe. The first underlined word, kafaru, disbelieve, deny. Sawa'un, same, equal. Anzartam, you forewarn them, you apprise them, you caution them. Yu'minun, they are to believe. As opposed to Muttaqeen, there are Kafireen, who see the importance of righteousness, but they do not adopt it. The reason is their personal interests, obstinacy, jealousy, and vanity. As mentioned in the Holy Quran, chapter 2, verse 89. And when there came to them a book from Allah confirming what was with them, although before they used to pray for victory against those who disbelieved, but when there came to them what they recognized, they disbelieved in it. So the curse of Allah will be upon the disbelievers. And verse 290 mentions how wretched is that for which they sold themselves, that they would disbelieve in what Allah has revealed through their outrage that Allah would send down His favor upon whom He wills from among His servants. So they returned having anger upon anger. And for the disbelievers is a shameful doom. And chapter 27, verse 14 mentions, and they rejected them, while their inner selves were convinced out of the injustice and haughtiness. So see how was the end of the corruptors. And chapter 35, verse 32. And they swore by Allah, their strongest oath, that if a warner came to them, they would be more guided than any other of the nations. But when a warner came to them, it did not increase them except in aversion. Chapter 35, verse 43 mentions, on account of their arrogance in the land and their plotting of evil, but the plotting of evil will harm in only the plotters thereof. There are so many other verses in the Holy Quran which highlight the characteristics of Kafir. The study of such verses reveals that such people do not follow the path, the correct path, by their own choice. And they also prevent others from following it. And this fact is mentioned by the Holy Quran in verse 6, in chapter 6, verse 26. And they forbid from it and avoid it, and they ruin none but themselves, and they perceive not. And chapter 41, verse 26. And those who disbelieve, they say, do not listen to this Quran and drown the hearing of it, so that you may overcome. These people have reached to such a level of denial that whether or not they are cautioned about the dangerous consequences of their misdeeds, they will not change their course. They will not change their attitude, and they would not adopt the path of truth. As mentioned in chapter 36, verse 69 and 70. It's not but a message and a clear Quran to warn whosoever is alive and justify the world against the disbelievers. And alive in the Quranic sense is the one who understands Quran. And dead is the one in the Quranic sense who doesn't understand the Quran. ختم الله على قلوبهم ولا سمعهم ولا أبصارهم غشاوة ولهم عذاب عظيم. Allah has set a seal on their hearts and their hearing, and on their sight is a veil, and for them is a great suffering. Khatama, sealed. The first underlined word, khatama, sealed. Qulubuhum, their hearts. Samehum, their hearing. Abswarahum, their vision. Yeshava, a covering or veil. Azabun, penalty, punishment, a harsh treatment, a suffering. Azim, tremendous. Now, as a result of the outlook and misdeeds, Kafireen lose their capacity for comprehension, for listening, logical reasoning, and observation. Thus, they deprive themselves of the clear path and real joy of life, and they fall in the inferno of devastation. Putting a seal upon the hearts, hearing, and vision have been explained wonderfully by Murshid Kareem Hazrat Khwaja Shamsuddin Azimi in the words, it's not Allah who puts the seal at His own. It is the outcome of continuously pursuing wrong path, which they chose for themselves as per their own will. Actually, once a person adopts a wrong course of action, and in spite of being warned about the consequences time and again, he does not pay any heed and continues to travel in the darkness, and reaches so far that no chance is left for his return. At this stage, Allah Almighty accepts his choice and darkness of ignorance. This is called putting a seal upon heart. Now, this reality is explained wonderfully in chapter 45, verse 23. Have you seen who has taken his own desire as his Lord, and Allah has led him astray in the face of knowledge, and has set a seal upon his hearing, his heart, and put a cover on his being. So who will guide him after Allah? Then will you not be reminded? A summary of this short and a wonderful paragraph, Ruku. Now this revelation is in response to the request made by us for guidance of Sirat-e-Mustaqeem. This book, the Holy Quran, is free from any ambiguity, any doubt, and it's a source of enlightenment for Muttaqeen. And Muttaqeen are those people who possess keen interest within them about Allah. 4 major qualities of Muttaqeen, which are also the requirements to understand Quran, are Eeman BilGhaib, establishing bond through Salah, spend on people out of the provisions given by Allah, and believe that everything is from Allah. It's coming from Allah and returns to Him. Muttaqeen are the people whose efforts bear fruits, and opposed to them are Kafireen, are the deniers, who keep pursuing a course of their own desires and resultantly meet failure. This short ruku, or the paragraph, has described for us 2 courses of action. One, path of guidance, as prescribed by Allah, and the other is the course of action according to self-desires. Obviously, once 2 courses have different directions, they would have different results. Choice rests for us. May Allah grant us the correct understanding. Sadaqallahu al-Aliyyul Azim. Sallallahu ta'ala ala habibi Muhammadin wa alihi wa sallam.